The barrier is everybody gives a shit what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
And so they're on camera or they're on a microphone trying to be smart or concerned about whether or not they look good in the shot, concerned about how they sound, whether or not they stuttered, if their neck is turning red, like whatever it may be. And they're so up here that they're not actually being true to just saying what's right here.
Absolutely.
Whether you're speaking from the heart, speaking from the gut, like that is the skill to develop, is the ability to be more like an 11-year-old that gets on camera and can just be themselves instead of being a 49-year-old person censoring themselves.
Got it.
And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the truth, when I talk about authenticity, that people really want to feel that connection. And the only way that they're going to feel that connection is if you do the work to remove the own veneer and the own barriers that you put in between you and other people. And the number one thing is everybody gives too much of a shit about what everybody else thinks.
Absolutely.
And you know who they think they're worried the most about? Their friends.
Yeah.
If I put this thing up, not for my friends, but for the people that I'm trying to build a rapport with online, my friends are going to judge me. Your friends. Seriously. If you're out to make a difference, if you're out to share something that is important to you, if your friends don't like it or don't support you, they're really not your friends.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, no, definitely makes total sense.
And it's a really hard lesson. It's a very hard lesson because everybody's always judging everybody else. That's why you can't worry about it.
Do you have like recommendations for how people just get started, like from moving from that, like to basically move from their mindset of I care too much to I don't care as much? Like, are there steps that you recommend people take?
The only step that really works is action.
Okay.
Because if you're stopping to think about what people are thinking or whether or not you're worried about what people are thinking, you've already fallen into the trap.
Okay.
The second that you push yourself to get started through the action itself, you are proving to yourself that even though you care what everybody thinks, you're gonna do it anyway.
Okay.
And so that's why I talk about the 5-second rule. The 5-second rule is how you interrupt the excuses, the patterns, the concerns, and the fears that you have, whether it's perfectionism, whether it's disappointing your parents, whether it's being judged by your friends, whether it's looking stupid when you post something, whether it's screwing up and saying something that a bunch of trolls come after you for, right? All those things that everybody's concerned about, that can stop you forever.
Absolutely.
If you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you break the part of the brain where all of those trappings are, and you awaken your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that you're using when you're creating content, when you're speaking with courage, when you're learning something new. And so that's why this simple brain trick that I invented is exploding around the world, because every last one of us is exactly the same. Exactly the same. You and I, we want the same thing. We want to actually live a life where we get to express ourselves at the highest level. We all want the same thing, and we're all stopping ourselves the same way, by thinking too much, by buying into the lies that self-doubt tells you. And so I'm here to tell you, you can cut that off at the knees. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can make a 5-second decision. The second you feel that doubt, the second you feel that concern, the second you feel that fear, and you can literally feel it and actually move anyway. So we've been getting a ton of questions about being paralyzed with the fear of what other people think. And this is so commonplace. I think every human being on the planet is paralyzed in some aspect or some area of their life because they're concerned about what their parents or what their friends or what their friends on Facebook or what their colleagues or what their upline or their downline or whatever, what their neighbors are going to think. If you are struggling with this and you have not found it helpful to attack your thinking patterns, then here's a trick that I want you to try to break the pattern of being paralyzed by what other people think. I want you to pick one thing that you've been wanting to do, that you've been thinking about, but you have stopped yourself from doing because you're concerned about what other people think. Let me give you some examples. Maybe you've wanted to go on a wellness retreat, but you think your spouse will roll their eyes at you, so you haven't done it. Maybe you have a particular Facebook post or a blog. So many of you want to start a business or start creating art, but you're terrified of putting yourself out there because of what other people will think. Today, we're going to break that pattern. What you're going to do is you're going to pick one thing you've been stopping yourself from doing, and you're going to do it. You're going to do it. And the reason why I want you to do this is because I know that if you're still paralyzed, you have not been able to change your thinking patterns yet. That's cool, no problem. We're going to try a different tactic. I want you to change this paralysis through action. Because if you sign up for that class, if you go on that retreat, if you create your art, if you post that blog post, if you start that business, you will be proving to yourself through the actions that you're taking that you don't care what other people think. Try that today. Let me know, number one, what you've stopped yourself from doing, and number two, what you're committing to doing today. Because one way to break this is to attack the thoughts and change the thoughts and get into action first. The other way to do it is to recognize that you're paralyzed, pick one thing that you're going to do, and actually get it done. How do I stop myself from worrying about kids and young adults drinking at night and getting killed by drunk drivers? This was a huge one for me. I worry about this. So there's a difference between worrying about it and managing it. So that is a real concern. That is a real issue that we as parents have to deal with. The issue that if kids are at partying and there is somebody there with keys, that they could get into a car with somebody who's been drinking, that they themselves could drive a car while they've been drinking. And I'm not proud to admit this, but growing up in Western Michigan, we did a lot of that. Very small town, rural area. We were always heading out to Lake Michigan. There was a friend of our family who was killed by a drunk driver when I was in high school. And so I'm going to tell you something. As a parent, this is an issue that I am maniacal about. And instead of worrying and keeping myself up, worrying whenever they're out, and my thoughts do drift to this. I'm not going to lie to you. They will drift to this. You're a parent. It is impossible to not have your thoughts drift to things that concern you about the well-being of your children. But what I have chosen to do from a very young age is to put absolute, critical, non-negotiable blocks in place. So my kids always take an Uber. Always. They don't even drive to parties. That is something that I will pay for because I am so adamant that I don't want them drinking and driving. I also have them text me when they're on their way home. I have them come in and wake me up when they've gotten home. So for you, what I would ask yourself if you continue to worry about it is, first of all, do you have the controls and the agreements in place with your kids that you actually trust? And if not, you need to get those in place and you need to reinforce them and you need to get to a point with your kids where you trust them. And I'm going to tell you something. Your kids just promising that they're not going to drink, that's not one that you can trust. Doesn't matter how good your kids are, doesn't matter what your value system is as a family, kids will experiment. And so you have to have a plan. And so the thing that's interesting about this question is that having your thoughts drift is normal. Allowing it to be chronic is a choice. And there's two things that you got to do. You got to make sure that you have taken the steps to solve the problem that concerns you. And number two, that you redirect your thoughts every time you start to worry. And the other thing is that you got to ask yourself a question about whether or not you trust that your kids are doing what you're asking of them. And if not, that's a different set of actions to take in order to make sure that they really get it. I mean, I've told my kids the story of being woken up by my mother in the middle of the night when I was like in 9th grade and her putting her arms around me and sobbing in the middle of the night and telling me Michael Lang had been killed in a drunk driving accident. I remember that. That is like in my nervous system. I have told my kids that story. And so I have put controls in place that are appropriate for my kids' ages, and it's been working. Does that mean I never worry about it? Of course not. I'm a parent. But I don't worry myself to a point where I feel anxious. If I have a concern, I will call one of them. If I ever find out that they have broken our agreement, they will not see the light of day for literally a year. All right, let's go to Tiffany Winfield Alexander. How does this work when dealing with a loved one with a chronic illness? How it works is you got to choose what you are willing to worry about and not. You will not change your loved one's chronic illness by worrying. And you will also rob yourself of precious, precious time that you have with them while they're here. And there is nothing more powerful than being present and being grateful that the time that you have, and worrying will steal that from you. And so I think it's important to be deliberate about managing the things that you need to manage related to the chronic illness. It's important to be diligent about noticing changes in someone's state that need to be addressed when you're dealing with a chronic illness. But it is a mistake to let worrying rob you of being present and rob you of the joy and the gratitude that you can feel for the time that you have with this person that has a chronic illness. I hope that distinction lands, because it's a really powerful and very, very important one. That does not diminish the real commitment and the tax that it takes on you emotionally when you're caring for somebody with a chronic illness. But what I'm talking about is the difference between letting your worrying, which will not change anything, rob you of the things that really matter while you're with this person. And you can train yourself not to worry about the things that you can't control while still being deliberate and on top of managing the details and any changes, so that you take the steps that you need in order to change somebody's care or address something. Okay? Awesome. Getting a few of the financial worry ones. All right. How do you train yourself not to worry about finances? With 3 kids and so much on our plate, how can I stop with the worry? Well, let me ask you a question. And this is going to sound rude, wife, mother, nurse. Does worrying make you more money? Does worrying save you money? Does worrying do anything proactive at all? This is very similar to the piece of advice that I just gave to the person who was living with somebody with a chronic illness. There's a difference between having something that you spot that's wrong and then taking deliberate action to solve it or address it, and wasting time, energy, and your health spinning worries about a situation and also doing nothing to change it. So one of the reasons why, if you're somebody that worries about finances, it is critical that you reset your mindset, is because worrying about money is not going to help you make more money. You need to start to visualize a couple years out. Don't necessarily visualize massive trips or something that feels unattainable. You don't need to be standing in front of a Lamborghini to make a little bit more money and not feel the stress that you're feeling. But I want you to go to a moment in time. This is, again, video number 1, the science of visualization. Anchor yourself out to a time in your life, a year or 2 years from now, where you have where you have financial relief, where things aren't so tight, where you have the ability to save, you have the ability to breathe a little bit, okay? And I want you to feel the positive emotion that comes from knowing that you did the work to change your financial situation. So visualization is a very important thing. The second thing is that I would ask you is, what is it that you need to do that you currently don't have the time, or are too afraid, or actively tell yourself you don't know how to do it? What are the things that you need to do, the action steps you need to do in order to address your financial situation? Do you need to get a side hustle? Do you need to stick to a budget? Do you need to downsize? Do you need your kids, if they are of a certain age, to get a job so they make their own spending money? What is it that you could be doing to ease the burden? What are the actions? And I'm saying this because what you often find, and what I have found true in my own life, is that worrying about something is easier than fixing it. And worrying about something is, in many ways, something that I used to do in order to hide from having to put myself out there and take the necessary actions, whether it was asking for a raise or cutting back on things that I was spending on that I couldn't afford. That is the real question to ask yourself. And here's the other thing. Since worrying about finances isn't going to make you more money, if you were to stop worrying, and if you were to start thinking positive in your ability to fix this, and you were to lower that level of stress in your body, what would you be able to find the time to try? I would start there. Totally start there with visualization and that. Here we go. You know your teaching just helped me. This is Lisa. My daughter, 24, is planning to go on a study abroad to Morocco. I'm so happy for her, but my SIL, I don't know what that means, sister-in-law introduced fear to my experience by telling me how dangerous it is there. I observed my own fear creep or roar in, not fun. I caught it, became aware of the choice I have for how to think. I'm happy for her. Again, it's natural, but not necessary for me to worry. Exactly. So in that situation, here's what I would suggest. If you are concerned about her going to Morocco, okay? Here's the difference between worrying about something and having the worry hijack you and become a default, and worrying like you just did and having that worry be a signal to get deliberate and take action on something. Not action up here, worrying about Morocco, but action in taking steps to address something that could be a concern. So what I would do is I would call the program she's going on and I would have a conversation with them. And the other thing that I would do is I would have I would talk to your daughter about what you need from her so that you don't worry. Do you need a check-in every couple days? Do you need her to text you photos? Do you need, when she gets there, if she's staying with a family, to FaceTime with the family? Do you need to reach out to your network and have a friend of a friend of a friend identified that lives in Morocco? So in the case of something, you have somebody to call. You know, in my, I can think of an example where this put me completely at ease. My daughter, our oldest daughter, lived in Phnom Penh in Cambodia with her grandmother. Now, her grandmother was 70 at the time. Our daughter was in 8th grade, and she was going to live over there with her for 3 months, helping her grandmother teach English. And I started to think, holy cow, am I crazy? I'm letting her go halfway around the world. She's going to be with a woman who's getting older. What if, something happens to the grandmother? What if our daughter suddenly finds herself alone in a country? The grandmother's had a heart. Like, you can see, your mind starts to spin. My stomach starts to panic. Oh my God, you can't go, you can't go. Like the worries turn into a roar. So what we did is we identified a contact in Cambodia through a friend of a friend, and we had a FaceTime call with him and his family before they went. And this was also somebody that the grandmother knew, so that if we had an emergency, our daughter had somebody that we knew that was in touch with her that she could reach locally, so that we had a plan B in the event that something happened. Having a plan B like that is just magical, because you know that you've thought through the concern, you've taken action to put something in place so that the concern is addressed, and you don't need to worry about it now. If there's a problem, we'll figure it out. If there's something catastrophic that happens, we have a plan B. And that did wonders for me. And we also FaceTimed with her every other day, which also did wonders for me. Let me think. Amber from Facebook. What is something I can do to stop worrying? How do I start to break this habit? It's killing me. I'm so glad you asked. Because I apologize that this training has been so long. Because I'm just now getting to the homework. First of all, I want you to realize something. This is a habit. A habit's just a pattern. That's it. And every day during Anxiety Week, we are going to be building on everything that we're learning. So what you're learning today is the connection between your worrying about things and how it triggers your body to start to feel agitated, and that's when anxiety sets in, okay? And when your body starts to get agitated, that's when it usually really impacts your actions. And so it's critical that we start with the habit of worrying. So your homework for today is to simply write down the things that you worry about. And some of you may have 100 things. In fact, in the comments, why don't you start to write for us, what is it that you worry about? Because I guarantee you, as you see people write down what they worry about in the comments, you're gonna be like, yep, me too. Oh, yep, me, I worry about that one. Oh, yep, when my boss gets it, yep, Oh, when my spouse starts drinking, oh yeah, I got that one too. Oh, yep, when my kids are out, yep, yep. Oh, I worry about that. Yep, I worry about running out of money. I worry about this. I worry about that. And you'll be amazed how often your mind isn't even right here with you and me. That your mind is thinking about some moment in the future when you're going to lose all your money. Or your mind is thinking about the fact that, holy cow, I haven't heard from my spouse in a couple hours. I wonder if they're dead. Or your mind is worried about what you're going to do on Thursday when you go to that doctor's appointment. Being a deliberate thinker means, when your mind defaults to something in the future that's negative or something that you can't control, we're going to yank it right back to this moment. And we're either going to visualize something positive or we're going to think this other thing that makes me settle, that gives me control. The first step is writing down everything that you worry about. If you want to take the assignment a step further, you can start to write down things that you could think instead of the worry. Another thing that you could do with this list of worries is, and this is what we're going to build on tomorrow, is now that you have a list of worries, we're going to start to coach you to understand that your worries are typically things that need some form of action for you. They need some problem solving. They need some system in place. They need some plan B that you don't have now that's going to make you feel like that thing that concerns you, you've at least put down something that makes you feel a little bit better about it, okay? The other thing that we're going to talk about tomorrow is we're going to talk about triggers. This is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. We're going to talk about how there are triggers all day long that trigger you to worry and you don't even realize it. Everything from people to time of day to people's tone of voice. And so we're going to talk to you all about going through and identifying triggers in your day. This is absolutely incredible. So Amber, how do you stop worrying? First, let's identify what you're worrying about, okay? Then we're going to just go step by step by step. We're going to coach you on how you identify the things you worry about, and then we're going to talk about what are the things you're not doing. What are the things you need to do in that area so that you have put controls in place so that the worry is unwarranted. So first of all, I literally have struggled with anxiety my entire life. And anxiety for this conversation, the way I define it is the habit of worrying spiraled out of control. You know, you may say that you are a worrier. That's not true. You have a habit of worrying. A habit is a pattern of behavior or thinking that you repeat without realizing it. So anxiety happens when that pattern of worrying about things spirals out of control, and now it starts to marry and manifest itself with physical sensations too. That's all that it is. I know that I say that's all that it is. Me personally, I struggled with anxiety, I think my entire life. It became quite acute when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I became medicated in the middle of law school. I took Zoloft for 2 decades. When our first daughter was born, who is now 17, the postpartum depression and the cascading panic was so terrible that not only was I medicated and couldn't breastfeed, but I couldn't be left alone with her.
Wow.
So when I say you can cure yourself of anxiety, I don't say that lightly. 4 years ago, after I had been using the 5-second rule to change my behavior, how I spoke to my husband, how I negotiate in business meetings, how I conduct sales, the kind of parent that I am, my health habits, my eating habits, curbing the drinking, I thought, I wonder if I can use this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing to get control of my thought patterns. Not my behavior patterns, my thought patterns. Yes, you can. So we're gonna build this conversation because I want to start with something we can all relate to, and that is, how do you stop worrying and how do you stop listening to self-doubt? This is how you're going to do it. So all day long, you're going to have moments where your thoughts drift, and I use that word on purpose because for me, there is a physical sensation when you start to use the 5-second rule and you start to wake up. Not only on time in the morning, but you wake up to your life and the opportunities in your life. Your thoughts drift. Like you'll just be hanging out with your friends and then suddenly you're like, I'm not sure that person likes me anymore. I haven't heard from my kids lately. I wonder if they're dead or, as a check, like you just start worrying about stuff. Why? Because it's a habit. Because when you're not paying attention, your brain shifts from you being a decision maker and paying attention to you just kind of spinning things on autopilot, and one of your habits is worrying. The second you wake up and you notice, holy cow, I'm talking some negative garbage to myself right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You've just shifted the part of the brain that you're using. You've shifted from the basal ganglia, which is where your habit loops are spinning, and you've awakened your prefrontal cortex. You've also interrupted that pattern. Now what you're going to do, because your mind is actually ready to receive a different thought because of the counting, now you can put in an anchor thought. Like if you have a mantra, if you've got a vision about the way that your business is going to turn out in 5 years, if you just have a thought that makes you really happy and proud, insert that. Now, why does this work? It works because of the counting. And I'm not kidding. We know, based on research, that positive thinking alone, not effective. In some instances, trying to force yourself to think positive can actually make the worries worse. Why? Well, the reason why is because it's really hard to just change the channel. What we have to do first is basically interrupt it and turn off the TV, and then turn it back on with the prefrontal cortex awakened. So the counting is essential. And so you can start using this today. You catch yourself talking garbage to yourself, because we all know if I were to put a speaker on your head and broadcast, you would be sitting here in the audience, you'd be in an insane asylum, because the crap that you say to yourself is insane. And the problem is we listen to it. You'll be in a sales meeting and you'll be undermining yourself. They're not going to buy. Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. You're not even present. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch it back. Get back to that vision that you have about toasting your success, or this customer being really happy, or you being proud of yourself. Whatever that vision may be, you can control your thoughts. And this is not just us talking about it. This is a tool that you can use. So let's take it a step further. So worrying, if you let it go unchecked, what will happen is you will get used to worrying. You will get used to living in a state where you're slightly agitated all the time. Let me talk a little bit about agitation. So what we know based on research is that physically, in your body, so physiologically, being excited is the exact same thing as being afraid. Let me say that again, because it is so important. In your body, being excited is the exact same thing as being afraid. Your body doesn't know the damn difference. Your heart races, your armpits sweat, you're like, you may get tight in your throat. Your cheeks may get pink like mine do when I get excited. The only difference between excitement and fear is what your brain says. And the problem is, if you have a habit of worrying, guess what you're going to tell yourself is going on? That you're like freaking out. That you're not excited, that something must be wrong. Oh gosh, why would you say something's wrong? Because you got a habit of saying that all the time. Even as I became a speaker for a living, or I'd be on CNN, when I first started doing it, I would be freaking out backstage. But even though, like, just last week, standing backstage, about to go on, 8,000 people, heart races, armpit sweat, my hands get clammy. I'm not nervous though, not at all. I'm excited. And so I developed this technique, and research out of Harvard, not based on my technique, but something very similar, proves that if you basically, right before you're about to do something, take a test, run a race, public speaking, a business negotiation, ask somebody to marry you, whatever it may be that gets your heart racing, just do this. Go, I'm excited. I'm excited to give that speech. I'm excited to ask him or her. I'm excited to do this race. I'm excited. Because what happens is you give your brain context, so your brain doesn't escalate the stuff going on in your body. Your brain's not worried. Make sense?
Yeah.
So you can combine this with the 5-second rule. So we know how to do worrying. You catch your thoughts drift, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, anchor thought. If you start to feel your heart racing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to awaken the prefrontal cortex, and then start going, I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited to do this. Another technique that you can use is ask, I think they call it interrogatory questions, where instead of giving yourself a pep talk, say, well, why am I ready to do this? Why am I ready? Because that'll force you to answer the question, which then convinces you. So why am I ready to close this sale? Why am I ready to give this speech? Why am I ready? So those are two strategies that you can use backed by science that are proven to actually make your performance be much better. Now let's take it a step further to anxiety. So anxiety is what happens when the habit of worrying spins out of control, your body gets really agitated, and then you allow your mind to escalate it into a full-blown panic attack. So for those of you that have not had the pleasure of having a panic attack, let me explain what it's like. So have you ever been in your car and you're driving down the road and you go to change lanes and all of a sudden there's like, oh my God, there's a car right there, right? And you swerve a little bit and then your heart's like, and you may sweat a little bit and you grip the wheel really tight and you're super locked in on the road ahead of you. But then that car pulls away and the near miss scenario passes and your mind starts going, okay, you're all right now.
Right.
You're all right now. That's it. That's all. That's what a panic attack is, only it happens while you're standing in front of your coffee pot. Seriously. You have that same, oh my God, what behind that? And your heart's racing, and the problem for your brain is that your brain can't look around and say, holy cow, we almost got hit by a car.
Right.
Your brain's saying, what the hell is wrong with her? She's making coffee and she's freaking out. And so now your brain has a problem, because what's your brain's job? It's designed to protect you. So your brain will now do whatever it can to magnify the problem. Remember, we talked about the spotlight effect. It'll start telling you all kinds of crazy stuff because it can't figure out contextually what the hell's going on. She's just making coffee, now her heart is racing and she's breathing really. Holy cow, maybe she is having a heart attack. A lot of people that have panic attacks say, I think I'm dying, oh my God, what's happening? Wow. Or you'll see them do the deer in the headlights thing where they got to get out of the room. That is the spotlight effect in your brain, now taking control and magnifying everything to get you out of whatever it was. So here's how you use the 5-second rule. You use it to stabilize your thoughts before the panic escalates. And then what happens is it drifts into worry and then it disappears. Right. So the second you feel worry, you catch it, you train yourself to do that. If you start feeling yourself getting, your heart racing, you can 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and use the I'm excited, I'm excited. If that doesn't work, literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just give yourself an anchor thought, literally, of you being okay. It's what I started doing before the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because you can count backwards to do the same thing. But a lot of times it's the pattern of negative thoughts. I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other thing, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. Or even just worrying. What if the Delta variant takes off? What if I don't go back to work? What if this happens? What if that? How is that helping you exactly? Like there's productive worry, which is worry that motivates you to take action. And then there's destructive worry, which is worry that makes you literally circle the drain mentally. You always want to interrupt destructive worrying or any kind of destructive self-talk. So the second you catch yourself going, gosh, I look fat, or boy, I'm a loser, or there I go, I failed again, you're like, literally slap that shit away, like high five it away. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And you start with, I'm not thinking about that, because if you're so used to hearing I'm not good enough, there's no fucking way you're going to believe the mantra, I'm good enough. Because the thing about mantras are, and this is why most mantras are bullshit, is they don't work unless you believe them. And so there is power in creating what's called a meaningful mantra. But the first step to getting control of the negative self-talk is interrupt that shit. Don't listen to it. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. And then what I want you to do is just do that for a day. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. If you have any kind of thought that makes you feel bad, that you don't like, I'm not thinking about that. The next day, start to notice what are the patterns in terms of the thoughts that come up. You know, when I was writing this book, one of my daughters talked about the fact that she's constantly feeling like she's not a good person. And so, for example, she missed a dentist appointment. And because she's constantly thinking I'm not a good person, missing the dentist appointment becomes evidence. See, there I am again. I missed the dentist appointment. I'm not a good person. No. Are you kidding? Like, if somebody doesn't have the story, if somebody has a different story, like I'm a pretty good person, I do my best, and you miss the dentist appointment, a lot of us are like, oh, thank God, I can't stand the dentist. You know, I'll pay the $20 fee. I don't have to go. You don't attach I'm a shitty person to it. And so she started using, I'm not thinking about that. She's not ready to believe she's a good person yet, because she's so used to saying, I'm not a good person. So the first step is interrupt the thing, then take notice, and then you can start to create what I call a meaningful mantra, because now we want to break the pattern by saying, I'm not thinking about that, or use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then when you're ready, you can create a meaningful mantra to replace it, because any pattern is going to repeat unless you replace it. And so meaningful mantras are things that you can be like, yeah, I can believe that. So it might be, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best. You know, I screw up sometimes, but I'm not a bad person. You know, like those kind of things that are sort of not like, yeah, superhero, mantra, I'm fabulous. Like, most of us don't really feel that way about ourselves. So if you just are like, I'm doing the best I can, that's pretty empowering if you think about it. Or I can learn from this. Or this is temporary. I'll be okay. Those sorts of things are little ways to high-five your mind instead of, again, going low. You got a choice. Do you take yourself down or do you lift yourself up? Are you going outside of yourself or are you coming back in for what you need? I want you to come in and lift yourself up. That's what the high-five habit's about. I'm going to be talking to you about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and how it is critical if you want to quiet your anxiety, if you want to stop worrying, if you want to get control over what you're thinking about. It's going to begin with a habit that you have, that somebody else trained you, that you've gotten really good at this habit. And you know what the habit is? It's the habit of worrying. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of, sorry, let me just move that a little bit. We're all guilty of worrying about things that are beyond our control, worrying about things that doesn't matter, worrying about things that we shouldn't care about. Sorry, I've got the streaming lights anymore. Hold on, let me just ask Mandy a question. Worrying about all kinds of things that you shouldn't worry about. And it becomes a habit. It becomes a default way of thinking. And so in order to kick off Anxiety Week, I want to explain the connection between worrying and why that impacts anxiety. And now, since we're talking about anxiety, I have to be very clear about something, okay? I am not a therapist. I am an individual who struggled personally with anxiety for more than 2 decades. I took Zoloft, which was a lifesaver, and I strongly believe in trying medication when a professional believes that you are so in a hole mentally that medication will give you the ability to start to claw your way out of that hole. I have learned so much about anxiety because of my own struggles. And 5 years ago, I trained myself to be a deliberate thinker, just like I'm training you to be a deliberate thinker in this program. And through everything that I am about to teach you, and all of the strategies that you're about to learn, I learned all of these by researching anxiety. And I road tested them on myself while I was still in therapy. And I then started going off of my medication. And as my mindset reset and as my thinking patterns became more positive and stronger and healthier, I was able to completely cure myself of anxiety. And I say that with the utmost of relief and confidence. And I have also gone on to use these exact same techniques that I'm going to teach you to help my children deal with their anxieties. I've written extensively about anxiety in the 5-Second Rule book, which is right behind me. We've sold almost 1 million copies of that book. It is the #1 self-published audiobook in the history of Audible. I'm so proud of it. And I speak at length about anxiety and using the 5-Second Rule to cure yourself of anxiety, okay? But I need to make it very clear that these training sessions are in no way, a substitute for getting professional help. If you have the kind of clinical anxiety or you suffer from an anxiety disorder, it is paramount that you seek professional help from a therapist one-on-one, that you try remarkable therapies. I'm going to say it wrong, but it's EDRM or ERDM, which is the rapid eye movement therapy, incredibly helpful. And so don't be a hero. Don't go off your meds cold. Don't quit therapy because you think that this live training program is the answer. This live training program is a step. And this live training program for the next week in particular, while we talk about anxiety, you're going to be introduced to tools that are grounded in research and tools that have worked for millions of people and tools that you can take back to your therapist or take back to whatever counseling you get to help you become a deliberate thinker, which will help you quiet your anxiety, get control of it, and then ultimately cure it with the help of a professional if you have an anxiety disorder. So that said, please, please, please listen to everything that I'm about to tell you and try it, okay? Please try it because this stuff works if you practice it. And again, quieting anxiety, it's not an event. It's not a one and done. This is a process that you are going to repeat over and over and over again because the connection between anxiety and your mindset begins with your habit of worrying. We have a question from Twitter. Is worrying the same as overthinking? If you're overthinking about positive stuff and keeping yourself in an excited state, no, it's not. If you're overthinking and the overthinking is you spinning scenarios in your mind that are negative, yes. Overthinking is another word when it's negative for worrying on overdrive. It means that you worry in loops and you keep repeating the worry over and over and over as if you were washing the same load of laundry over and over and over again. And so we're starting with the habit of worrying about things that don't matter, worrying about things that you can't control, worrying about things that haven't happened yet, worrying about things that are far off in the future. When you start to train yourself to think about things that are not in your control, or think about things that are statistically likely never to happen, that is when you can get into trouble. And that's why we're going to start with worrying. You see, worrying is when you allow your mind to default on autopilot and think about things that don't serve you. Think about things that are outside of your control. I'm going to give you an example that's very recent in my life. So I don't know, there were a bunch of you that noticed in the live streams that were on January 6th and January 7th, and I think January 5th. Many of you noticed that I had a lot of discoloration on my neck, and I had what appeared to be a lump. And my own dermatologist pointed it out to me, that I had a lump that was kind of like right here. Now, the second that somebody says lump, what are your thoughts default to? Automatically. The second somebody says you got a lump on your neck, cancer. Of course. I've got some sort of disease that's going to kill me. And so what do I do when my thoughts go there? Well, then I start touching it, and I start poking at it, and I start pinching at it, and then I start asking everybody, do you see this lump on my neck? And asking people if they see a lump, that's a proactive action. That's a good idea. But the bad thing to do is to let your thoughts then default to thinking that you have cancer, to thinking that there's something wrong, to thinking that you're going to die, to thinking that this is going to be a major problem, to thinking that there's an emergency right now. And the problem with allowing your thoughts to go that way is because when you start to think about things, first of all, it's outside of my control if this is cancer or not. It's outside of my control right now if this is going to kill me. It's outside of my control right now whether or not a week from now when I go see my doctor, they're going to diagnose what is in my neck. Full disclosure, I saw my doctor. There's nothing wrong with me, okay? So if you allow your thoughts to constantly drift to the worst case scenario, what's going to happen as your thoughts spiral is your body is going to pick up on the fact that your thoughts are negative. Your body's going to pick up on the fact that your brain is worried. And what's going to happen if you allow your thoughts to spiral the way that mine started to about this silly little lump on my neck is that you will start to trigger agitation in your body. So when you start thinking negative things up here, you're going to start feeling negative things in here. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You might actually start to sweat. Your heart might start to race. Your throat might get tight. Your hands might get clammy. These are all telltale signs that you have now crossed from simply worrying in your mind to feeling physical agitation, which is anxiety. So that's the relationship between worrying about something, which is thinking negative thoughts about things that are outside your control, and anxiety, which is when those worries become physical agitation in your body caused by your thoughts. That's it. And so it's critical for you, if you have anxiety, if your kids have anxiety, if you're a chronic worrier, if you lay awake at night thinking about all these things that you need to do, we're going to go through all of this and all kinds of things that you can do to start to address this. It is critical that you understand that there is a connection between the day-to-day anxiety that many of you feel. We're not talking about anxiety disorders here. We're talking about the day-to-day anxiety that you feel that is triggered by the worries in your own head, that is triggered by the overwhelm that you feel in your life. This is anxiety that you can quiet. This is anxiety that you can get control of, because this form of anxiety is all triggered by your habit of worrying about things beyond your control. Worrying about whether or not your boss is going to snap at you. Worrying about whether or not your spouse is going to be in a bad mood when you walk in. Worrying about things that you can't necessarily control. And so here's the thing that you want to do. When you have a worry, for example, being worried about a lump in your neck is a good thing, because it'll get you to take action. So the second that I confirmed and I looked at the screenshots that many of you sent me and I checked it out in the mirror, that I had a little something right here, I made an appointment with my doctor. And then you know what I did for the rest of the week? I practiced the tools that we've already covered in videos 1 through 11. I practiced the tools of autopilot versus deliberate thinking. You see, you worry when you're on autopilot. When you direct your thoughts and you're deliberate, you're now in control of what you're doing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Mindset Reset. the playlist on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And on video number 2 is all about autopilot versus deliberate thinking. So I would catch myself when I'd start to think about the lump. And I would go, nope, I'm not going to worry about that because I can't control it. I'll find out on my doctor's appointment if there's anything that I need to be concerned about. Until then, I'm going to not think about that. I'm going to think about this. And so day 4, when we talked about thinking this and not that, so this is video number 4, I used those tools all this week, everybody, in order to make sure that I didn't allow my habit of worrying about some lump on my neck turn into anxiety that I started to feel in my body. Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. And by directing my thoughts, so whenever I'd start to think, oh, there's that lump, and I'd start to touch it again, which of course makes it bigger, I would go, wait a minute, hold on. Nope, I'm not going to think about this. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to be deliberate, and I'm going to think that I'm okay. And I started to train myself to go, I'm not going to worry about it until I have something to worry about. I'm going to make a doctor's appointment, and I will worry about it when there's something to worry about it. But for now, I'm just going to assume that it's totally fine, that there's nothing there, that maybe it's an insect bite or something like that that's gotten inflamed, and that's that. And you know what? It works. It works. And let's say that when I went to my doctor's appointment on Thursday, I got a bad diagnosis. Well, guess what? Then there are decisions to make. Then there are things to be concerned about. I still am going to have to manage my worries, because if I start to allow myself to get anxious about a negative situation, I'm going to make it worse for myself, okay? Your anxiety and your worrying doesn't change the things you need to do to address any problem in your life or potential problem. But worrying and causing yourself anxiety will make the potential problem worse, because you are going to make yourself feel worse. So it all begins with you and being deliberate about what you will allow yourself to think about and what you will not allow yourself to think about. How can I manage financial worries with an anchor thought? Gio, excellent question. So how you manage them is, I want you to forecast 2 years from now, and don't be thinking about a Lamborghini. Be thinking about something that is be thinking about a vision that is something that you believe that you can accomplish. Maybe you want to save up money to take the kids to Disney World. Maybe you want to save up money to be able to put down a down payment on your first house. Maybe you want to pay off your student loans. Maybe you want to pay off your credit card debt. Maybe you want to get $10,000 in savings. Whatever it may be, something that is achievable. So, not like you're drinking some sort of magic potion and suddenly you win the lottery, but something that's achievable through consistent effort. Think about 2 years out, and your anchor thoughts are all around how proud you're going to feel when you've achieved this goal. And the reason why you want to go, I'm really excited, so that for 2 years from now, when I can look at my bank account and see this, I'm really excited. I'm going to feel so proud of myself that 2 years from now, I can look back and see that I've done the work. And the reason why this anchor thought's so important is getting anxious and worried about your financial situation isn't going to help you. If worrying about it motivates you to get into action and be disciplined and take the consistent actions you need in order to change it, then worry. But for most of us, the worrying is counterproductive. What would be a lot better is to keep your attitude and your mindset positive and push yourself to continue to take the daily actions. Because let's face it, positive thinking alone is not going to change your financial situation. You must take action. I want your positive mindset to be an asset so that it helps you stay motivated to take action, because you see where you're headed and you see why it's important for you to make that phone call you've been avoiding today. Not out of fear, not out of scarcity, but because you know that by making that phone call to advance your side hustle 2 years from now, you can visualize that you actually are going to have done the incremental work to make this thing happen. Ashley, what are anchor thoughts for fear of having panic attacks? When going to places, I get anxious that I'm going to have a panic attack once I'm there. which I know is making me have panic attacks. You're 1,000% right, Ashley. This is called anticipatory anxiety, and it means exactly what you said, Ashley. And I used to get this. I was so afraid of panic attacks that I would think about my fear of having a panic attack, and thinking about having a panic attack at the party tonight or at the sleepover tonight, it would make my stomach hurt. And then the second my stomach started gurgling and spinning because I was thinking bad things, I would use my stomach as evidence for the fact that it was happening. And that would make my thoughts even worse about it. And this is why anticipatory panic is a doozy. And so here's something that I want to say. I'm talking about generalized anxiety, like the low-grade stuff that a lot of us feel in our complicated day-to-day busy lives. When you start getting into anticipatory panic attacks, it's super important that you go talk to a therapist. It's super important if this is happening a lot and they recommend that you try medication, that you listen to your doctors. You can get yourself into such a hole, and I've done this with myself. My kids have done this. They've gotten themselves into such a hole that they could not dig themselves out of it because the fear that they might have a panic attack created a situation where they were constantly in a state of anxiety. And so the right meds, professional help, it's a lifesaver. Don't be a hero. That said, what you can do is you can create an anchor thought that is of you leaving the situation, like the party, and saying to yourself, wow, I'm so proud of myself. I didn't have a panic attack. I actually enjoyed myself. The second thing that you need to do, Ashley, and this is critical, is you have to understand. You have to, and I would beg you to rewatch video 13 and video 14. You have to understand the connection between your worries and your body. And you have to understand that just because you have butterflies, it doesn't mean you're having a panic attack. And just because your heart is racing, it doesn't mean you're having a panic attack. And just because you feel something funny in your throat, it doesn't mean you're having a panic attack. The problem is for you is that body sensations have become the trigger. And anytime, this happened to my son, anytime your body feels off, you're now triggered to think a panic attack is coming. And that is the thing you have to interrupt. And so I would try coming up with some kind of mantra, like it's not a panic attack. My stomach just feels like junk. It's not a panic attack. My throat's just itchy. I would try coming up with some sort of mantra to redirect yourself. And I would also visualize leaving the event, having not had one, and how proud you're going to feel. And the final thing that I would have is I would work with somebody professional to come up with sort of, this is your kind of plan B thing, where what is your list of criteria that allows you to call it a panic attack? Because I think that you're labeling things that are normal everyday experiences as anxiety, and that body sensation thing is triggering you in your mind to think it's a panic attack. I think that's part of the problem. So I think it's essential that you go talk to somebody and sort this out.
So the fear of disappointing people, we've talked about one place that it comes from, which is making sure not to create a scene and making people like you. That's one lane that most of us have, and I'm going to tell you a story in a minute about how you can manage this. The second lens, and I got to give credit to my business partner Mandy for this, is that so many of us have this perfectionism gene. And the reason why we're perfectionists is we're trying to insulate ourselves from criticism. That if you get it perfect, no one will give you feedback. If you get it right, nobody's going to criticize you. If you do it perfect, then no one will be able to attack you. And the problem with that, and that's just another side of the same coin, which is the fear of disappointing people. You're managing not disappointing people, not by lying and not by being codependent, but by actually trying to be a perfectionist so that nobody criticizes you. So let me tell you a story about the fear of disappointing people in my own life. Because this is the biggest trigger in my life. I mean, it goes back to being in 4th grade, right? It's there. And this is another thing, I literally have to remind myself of this, everybody, every single day. You cannot remove the things that trigger you. You can't. If you've been doing a pattern since 4th grade, there will be things for the rest of your life that will trigger that pattern to come up. But you can always choose not to repeat the pattern. So you'll be triggered and be afraid that you're going to disappoint somebody. That's real, that's normal, it's natural, it's part of being a human being. I think it's interwoven into every relationship where you love somebody. But you don't have to behave the way that you always behaved when you're nervous about disappointing somebody. So let me give you a dumb story. You ready? When my husband and I got married, my father gave us this really incredible gift. He gave us an antique pool table. I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan, where Brunswick was founded. And my dad has a hobby of going to garage sales and estate sales and buying old, dilapidated pool tables, and then he restores them. So when Chris and I got married, he bought us an old, dilapidated pool table from the same era as our house, which is the 1870s. He restored the whole thing, and then recently he and I rented a U-Haul, and we drove this sucker from Muskegon, Michigan to Boston, Massachusetts. My dad and I took a road trip. We get there, and we assemble the pool table in what used to be our playroom. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, the speaking business takes off, my business starts to grow, we have people that work for us, and my kids are older. We don't need a playroom, we need an office. The pool table is in the middle of this thing. For the first 2 years of having the office, we kept the pool table there. Why? Because I didn't want my dad to be disappointed. Because I love him. Now, he visits our house twice a year for 2 or 3 days with my mom. And I kept this thing occupying a third of our office for 2 years. And then I realized I'm being ridiculous. I'm being absolutely ridiculous. Now here's the thing. Will he be disappointed if I take the pool table down? Absolutely. Definitely. There are always going to be things that you do, decisions that you have to make in your life, in your business, for your family, that will disappoint other people. It's unavoidable. But the fact that he's going to be disappointed should never be the reason that I don't do something that is aligned with my values. Now, let's take it a step further. When you make a decision that is likely going to disappoint people, or that does, still make the decision, because it's your life. There's nothing worse than when you start to rob your future and your life and your happiness because you're so focused on other people. However, if you love people, you can still take care of them when you make that decision. So let me go back to the example of the pool table. So I knew I was going to take it down. I knew my father was going to be disappointed. I was disappointed. I don't have a big house. So I don't have the room for a huge pool table. I don't have a finished basement like a lot of people. I don't have like a cool garage game room thing like I just don't have it. I called him first and said, I need to talk to you about something. You know, the pool table, I love the pool table. Dad, my business is growing so much, I actually need an office. And, oh great, it'll be great in the office. And I'm like, well, yeah, it would, except I have, 3 or 4 people showing up and we got to put some desks in there for now. Even went down, well, you could put a piece of plywood, and they could work on the pool table, and then they could do the thing, and then the thing. And now my heart is racing because I don't want to disappoint my dad, and now he's fighting and I had to just say, for me, Dad, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to hire professional movers in the pool table business to disassemble this with love and care. We're going to store it beautifully. When I either get a full-time office offsite, or I build a barn, or I build a different house, this will have its own beautiful room dedicated to you. So we had this beautiful conversation. Now, was he disappointed? Absolutely. When they come to the house and visit, which they just did, and they walk into the office, do I feel a pang? You better believe I do. It doesn't matter. That's all normal. I still need to make the decisions that I need to make. And the difference, what's changed, is how I relate to that fear. So instead of what I would do in the past is I would make a decision that doesn't serve me. I'd leave the pool table and then I'd be all about it. I'd leave the pool table as a way to make my dad happy, but it makes me miserable to leave it there because I need the space, right? And then I'd be kind of annoyed. And then he'd come and I'd fake play pool because I kind of want to rub, you know what I'm saying? Like we do all this that's not real. And what I've been able to do for myself in some instances when I catch it is to hit it head on and to be authentic and to still take care of people. And what I've also come to learn is that people can be disappointed in you and they still love you. You know, you're never going to get around this. Everybody in your family is going to be disappointed with you, probably once a day, probably. And you have the ability to retrain how you respond to that trigger that rises up in you where you start to fear that you're disappointing somebody. And the answer really is make the decision that's aligned with your values and the thing that supports you, and then take care of the person by being honest and straightforward about it, dealing with their disappointment head on, because that's really the adult thing to do, and that's what you do when you love somebody. The way we've all been handling it, myself included, is manipulation, lying, resentment, withholding, and that doesn't serve anybody. Remember in middle school when you'd be sitting at the lunch table with your friends and you'd agree with just about anything they said in order to fit in and make sure they thought you were cool? Well, have you ever sat down at a table with all your friends now and still feel like you can't be you? It might sound silly to think that you're still dealing with this shit as an adult, but it's more common than you think. Feeling like you can't be yourself or that you have to change who you are in order to be liked is one of the most normal pressures we feel. But that doesn't mean it's right or that you have to live with it. But if you don't ever feel like yourself, what is the cost of fitting in? Do you keep quiet? Do you wear certain clothes? Do you act a certain way or pretend to like things that you don't? Fitting in may make you think you're safe and secure around other people, but are you really safe and secure if you're creating distance from your true self? The answer is no. They call it peer pressure because the desire to fit in is putting pressure on you to be someone you're not. Now, peer pressure is a concept that we deal with our entire lives. It's so tempting to just stay quiet and go with the group because you think you're going to get invited more. You think you'll be accepted than you would if you were just being you, or so you think. You know that uneasy feeling you have when you can't be yourself? You're sitting there at the table, but you're not really there. Or you feel like you're always on the outside, looking in at a group of people, wondering why you don't feel like you belong. You gotta pay attention to this feeling because it means you don't feel safe and secure being yourself, and it also means you don't feel safe and secure with this group of people. That insecurity can stem from a million things, so let's just focus on what you should do about it. First of all, you have to stop putting pressure on yourself to be somebody you're not. You're not only robbing yourself of enjoying your life, you're robbing your friends of enjoying the real you. Now, what I've come to learn is that if you're pretending to be somebody you're not, your friends are likely pretending to be somebody they're not too. And if you don't stop this pressure to conform in its tracks, you're going to end up having friends that don't even know you. And worse, you're going to start to feel like you don't even know yourself. The more time you spend blending in, staying quiet, pleasing the people around you, the more you'll feel like you aren't yourself. That's the pressure you're feeling right now. Now, the first step to being the real you is getting to know yourself again. And it's going to sound kind of weird, but all you got to do is spend time with yourself, listen to your instincts. Maybe spend 10 minutes every morning reading something that interests you. Go for a walk. Get started on a project you've been thinking about. Find something that energizes you and set aside time to explore it on a daily, weekly, or even a monthly basis. And here's the most important part. Start talking about it with your friends. If you like different things or have different opinions than your friends do, it doesn't make you wrong. We all have this knee-jerk reaction that as soon as you're the odd one out, you're going to get kicked out of the group. That's why you stay quiet. That's why you shrink in order to blend in. It's bullshit. You need to fight your fears in order to be yourself. What if you getting real is what your friend needed to find the confidence to be real too? Confidence doesn't come from your friends liking the real you. Confidence is knowing you'll be fine if they don't. And if the people around you don't like the real you, remember, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people you're around. The only thing you'll lose by being real is something that's fake. So if you've been blending in since you were a kid, give yourself permission to live as yourself. It's a gift you deserve right now. Because in reality, other people liking you is a bonus. You liking yourself, now that's the real prize.
There was this one morning where I walked into the bathroom And I was standing in my underwear, brushing my teeth in front of the mirror. And I looked up at the mirror, and my first thought was, ugh. I noticed that my jowls were starting to look like saddlebags on a pack horse at the Grand Canyon. And I had like these crazy lines by my eyes, and my neck was really like kind of saggy, and one boob was hanging lower than the other, and my gray hair was coming in. And as soon as I started kind of critiquing my thoughts or my looks and appearance, then my mind, Rich, started going, fuck, I didn't get that email back to that person, and I got that presentation I need to do, and my God, did that speech just cancel again? What the fuck am I going to do? And then I look down, and the dog needs to be walked, and then I think, I got a Zoom call in 9 minutes. Like, I got to get my shit. And before I knew it, my whole mood was low. I felt overwhelmed. I had taken myself down mentally. I just wanted somebody to walk in and be like, Mel, it's going to be okay. Like, you got this, girl. Like, it's lift your head up. You can handle this. I don't know what came over me, Rich. This is pathetic. But standing there in my underwear in front of my bathroom sink, I raised my hand and high-fived my reflection. And I cracked a smile because it's so fucking corny. I even thought of that guy, Stuart Smiley from the SNL skits. Remember that? I'm nice, I'm kind, people like me. Went on with my day. That was it.
Snapped a photo, though.
No, not that one.
Oh, not that one. Not the first time.
And then I kept doing it. I did it probably for a week or two. And here's the weird thing about it. I started when I woke up after doing this high-five your own reflection in the mirror thing. I actually started to feel like I was looking forward to it. And here's why. You know, I've spent a lifetime, just like you, standing in front of the mirror. And what I realize now is that when I'm standing in front of a mirror, I'm either critiquing or picking myself apart, or I'm ignoring myself. And when you start to high-five your own reflection, it starts to build a partnership within you, with yourself. When you walk into the bathroom and you see your reflection and you've been greeting it, it's like seeing another person. It's the strangest thing. You start to realize how often you fucking ignore or destroy yourself when you see yourself or beat yourself up. And here's what's also crazy. You have a lifetime positive association with high-fiving other people.
Sure.
As a runner, as a racer, you have gotten so many high fives, Rich. What does a high five say to you when somebody gives you one?
You feel seen, you feel appreciated, you feel energized by it, and it's an exchange of energy. It's not the same, and you talk about this in the book, it's not the same as like self-talk because there's a participation involved in it. There's like a communion aspect to it.
Yeah. And, you know, if you think about it, you're so good at celebrating, seeing, and cheering for other people in your life. You plan birthday parties, you reach out to people when you're worried about them, you help out colleagues, you cheer for your favorite sports teams, you high-five people like Rich as they're running races past you, you buy people's merchandise, you do all kinds of stuff for other people, but nobody's taught you how to do it for yourself. In fact, the reason why it feels fucking weird to high-five your own reflection is because you've been taught to do the opposite.
Why is the default to just beat ourselves down like that? I mean, it is crazy. We would never treat anyone else in our lives, especially the people we care about, the way that we treat ourselves in terms of the self-talk or the narrative or the critique or the, you know, the kind of harshness with which we, you know, judge our appearances, our behavior, the way we, you know, think back on things that we said the other day and just are horrified by our own selves. And it's, I don't know if it's everybody, but it's most people.
Except for Buddhists. I mean, I think that they're like if you're a big practicing Buddhist, that's a monk.
Right.
That's like just
why can't the default be the good things though?
Well,
why is it wired that way?
You know why? There's cognitive bias. There's a bias towards negativity. And it's a protection mechanism that's a default from evolution, that if you remember the bad shit, you're more likely to spot it when it happens in the future.
So you can avoid it.
And here's where I think it begins. I believe my theory is that it begins two places. Either you, or that could be both actually, you either learned the pattern of beating yourself up because you had parents or caregivers that were hard on themselves or hard on you. And so as a child, you absorbed that pattern and you now repeat it and you don't even realize it. So those moments you're like, oh my God, I sound just like my dad or my mom. That is an example of a pattern that you've absorbed. So particularly for women, we've watched our mothers be critical about their appearance. We've watched our mothers ignore and criticize themselves in the mirror. And so we learn that from our caregivers. So that's one place. The second place that we learn it is when the drive in your life becomes fitting in. Fitting into groups in elementary, middle, high school, college, your neighborhood, that feels safe when you fit in. When you feel like you don't belong, you immediately go into a protection mechanism. And I believe a lot of the negative self-talk is a sorting hat type of mentality that we do to ourselves going, I can't be with those people. I can't be with those people. It's safe to be with those people. And you start to see yourself and the world around you as places where you belong and places where you don't. And part of the criticism, as fucked up as it sounds, that we engage in all the time is don't be too big, don't be too loud, don't show yourself too much, don't have blue hair, don't do this, other people won't like you. It starts as a way to protect yourself from being rejected, but the truth is you develop a habit of rejecting yourself.
Right. Meanwhile, you're further divorcing yourself from who you truly are because you're not
Correct.
giving yourself permission to be yourself. That gets sublimated in favor of fitting in and, accommodating other people and acclimating your behavior around what will be approved of.
Yes. So for me, I have clearly a lifetime of beating myself up and tearing myself down and regretting decisions that I made. And in the middle of stumbling through life, instead of being like, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, being like, you're really fucked up now, Mel. How does that help?
Right.
How does criticizing and being hard on yourself help? When life suddenly changes and you feel like you have lost control and you start to feel stuck and powerless, how do you take control when you don't know where your life or the world or this moment is going? And here's the number one thing I want you to know. You don't need to know where this moment or where the world is going. You just need to know where you are going next. And one of the things that has happened, certainly in the pandemic, but it always happens when there's any kind of reckoning in your life, is that when you have something suddenly happen and your life is fundamentally changed, whether it's a death or somebody says, I don't love you anymore, or you're fired, or you find yourself with a scary health diagnosis, there is a line in the sand. There is a life before that happened and then a life after that moment happened. And that line in the sand, that reckoning that happens, and it happens for all of us, whether it's happening for you right now or it has happened in the past, I'm telling you, there is a gift inside of this, even the darkest moments, because every single sudden change in your life that makes you feel like you've lost control and you no longer know where you're going, it's like hitting the giant pause button. And if you lean into the moment, there is a chance for tremendous wisdom and growth. There are things that you can do right now in order to take control of where you're going, of what you're thinking about. And you can start to take this moment of change and you can use it to be able to take and make an intentional pivot in the direction that is meant for you next. And one of the things I want to say about this moment is, look, if you're losing loved ones, you are terrified, this has made you lose your job, you feel like you're in that moment where everything, you're falling off a cliff, you're trying to pack a parachute, you're grieving. And so you got to give yourself space to grieve the losses that you're feeling. And when you get a little bit of distance from the grieving and the waves of grief and fear that you're feeling start to space out. They don't ever leave you, but over time, those waves of, holy cow, and I don't want this, and I can't handle this, and why is this happening to me? Time will start to lessen those waves. You will gather your feet underneath you again, And you will absolutely be stronger and be a better version of yourself based on this incredible challenge that you're facing. And I can say that even though you may be facing a tough time, because if you think about your life, you've faced extraordinary challenges, and there hasn't been a single one that hasn't made you a better and stronger version of yourself. And this moment will be no different. So I want you to understand that when you get out of the cycle of grief, this is an enormous reckoning, an enormous opportunity for you to hit the pause button and for you to start to ask yourself the question, what do I want my life to look like? Because I think too many of us are sitting here going, I can't wait for my life to get back to normal. I can't wait for this to end. I can't wait to things to go back to normal. And in any moment of reckoning, what happens is there's actually parts of your old life that you don't want to go back to. And there is a tremendous amount that you're learning in this moment that you need to pause and take in and say, okay, based on what I've just learned, based on my old life, when I look ahead to my new life, what is it that I want my new life to look like? This next chapter, I can turn to a blank page, I can take all this wisdom, all this resilience, all this strength, and I can write something new. That's what I want you to know. You don't need to know where the world or where everything is headed. You just need to know where you're going to head next.
Has anyone ever broken up with you and said, you deserve someone better? When you first hear those 4 words come out of your ex's mouth, it's like a slap across the face. You want to scream, wait, what do you mean I deserve someone better? I don't want someone better. I want you. I want this. I want us. You deserve someone better? What the hell? How can I deserve someone better when you're the best thing that's ever happened to me and now you're dumping me? It makes no sense when you hear it. Actually, if you take the time to understand it, it makes a lot of sense. You deserve someone better. It's actually one of the most honest and accurate statements an ex can say, and you need to understand it and take it seriously. Because when someone tells you you deserve better, what they're saying is they don't care enough about you to do the work to be better to you. Your ex is admitting to you that they know they have to change how they treat you, but they don't want to. Why? I have no idea. Maybe they're afraid of being vulnerable. Maybe they don't want to do the work, or maybe they're not ready for a committed relationship, or maybe they're just a narcissist who's incapable of loving anybody. The reason your ex doesn't want to change doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you move on. It feels so hard right now to move on because you're stuck in your head wondering, well, did they ever love me? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they still think about you all the time. Maybe they're going to wake up a year from now and regret breaking up with you. The truth is, it doesn't matter what they felt or what they think, because the only thing that matters when it comes to love is what someone does about those feelings. And when your ex says, you deserve better than me, they are saying, I don't plan to do anything about the feelings I have for you. I know, it's hard right now, and it might not make sense. I don't want you to feel stupid for allowing yourself to open up. Feeling love, believing in love, being vulnerable, opening yourself up to love. These are some of the most amazing experiences in life, so don't shut down love just because your ex shut you out. Love didn't hurt you. Someone who wasn't capable of loving you did. And do not mix up your ex with the power of real love. If anything, they just taught you that that relationship isn't real love. And that's why you need to move on right now. The faster you close this door emotionally, the sooner a new one's gonna open. Your ex told you the truth, and you gotta believe it. You do deserve better. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. How can I close the door when I have so many unanswered questions? Did they find someone else? Did they cheat? What could I have done to stop this from happening? Why did they do this to me? And why am I always getting hurt? Well, here's another truth. The answer to those questions, they don't matter, because you have all the information you need to choose to move on. You know your ex isn't capable of being the person you deserve. And when you love somebody more than they deserve, you'll get hurt more than you deserve. You got to stop falling for people that require you to twist yourself into someone you're not. And you need to learn to fall in love with the sound of walking away from someone who's not right for you. So how do you walk away? Well, first you got to forget your ex by remembering the lesson. When did you start to lose yourself in this relationship? When did you start to give more than they were giving you? What were the signs that you ignored that this wasn't right? How do I know there were signs? Because there are always signs. And when you find the signs, you're going to find the lesson and your pain will disappear. That's why I'm not worried about you. As time goes on, that pit that's in your stomach, it's going to start to go away. And the things that remind you of your ex, they're going to no longer carry any meaning. And you're going to grow from this situation. Take this lesson with you. The second you start to feel like someone's option B, the relationship can no longer be your priority, and you need to walk away. If you accept this relationship as a lesson that you do deserve better, you will set yourself free. Your ex was right. You may have wanted this relationship to work, but they didn't, and you deserve better. Growing stronger always feels a little like breaking at first, but better days and someone better are ahead. Believe it. Worrying is wasting time. It's robbing you of what you want to do in your life, and it's making you suffer in a needless way. Look, I don't want you to get to the end of your life and look back and think, I wish I hadn't wasted so much of my precious life on stuff that didn't matter. I wish I didn't let all that stupid worrying keep me from doing the things that I always dreamt about doing. I'm here to tell you that you can learn how to switch your thoughts to something more productive and optimistic. This is great news. Worry is a hackable thing, and I'm going to use a ton of science and proven experience to show you just how to hack it using one magical tool. And here's the great news. Once you learn how worry starts, you can use that knowledge to make it stop. You can practice this magical tool every day to quiet your mind. I mean, just imagine that. A quiet mind. Wow. I know exactly how you feel. I mean, I know how exhausting and frustrating it is to constantly be trapped in the grinding cycle of worrying about everything. How do I know this? I lived it. I've always been worried. I mean, if you could be a baby that worries, that was me. I'm sure at 11 months, when my mom was running late to heat up my pureed carrots and potatoes, I was probably thinking, is she coming back? Where is she? I'm starving. I mean, I might just starve to death here. I think she hates me. She's left. Maybe she's angry about the face I made as I tried the pureed snow peas for lunch. Oh my gosh, what do I do? I have to find a new family to feed me. How am I going to find my new family? I got no connections, no money. I'm wearing a diaper. I can't even walk yet. I'm going to starve to death in the next 24 hours. That was baby Mel. And that was just the beginning. I mean, I was just kind of warming up for a life of worry on a very elite professional level. You know, as a little kid, I worried about everything from the teacher's reaction to whether or not the kid in the stall next to me was going to hear me fart. When I got to middle school, it was all about whether or not my tough skin jeans were cool or my acne or my new perm that I immediately regretted. When I was in college, I was worried if I studied enough for the test, if I was going to flunk out, if I was going to go blind from the grain alcohol I drank from the garbage can at that frat party. I worried if I had enough gas in the car to get to the grocery store. The truth about worrying is, once you let it start to spin, it just spins out of control. I'm sure you know this. I mean, worry has tormented me. Since I was a kid, it tormented me as a teen, in my 20s, my 30s, hell, my 40s. And if I can go from having this worry as my torturous default and learn how to interrupt it and redirect it and program a positive mind, you can too. Here's exactly what you need to do about worry and overthinking. Here's the magical tool I want to share with you. And I got to give you a warning. This is going to sound so simple. You might even start worrying that it's not going to work. That's why I have strung along this episode like it's an infomercial about worrying, because the solution is so simple, and it has to be. When it comes to your habit of worrying, you already overcomplicate everything. If I give you 3 steps to remember, you won't do any of them. That's how good you are at worrying. I need you to have something simple. So I've come up with this incredible way to do hand-to-hand combat with your worrying mind. Are you ready? Good. The second you catch yourself worrying, when you feel your mind spin, when you feel your shoulders pinch up towards your ears like new earrings and you feel your jaw clench, and wait, there's more. You feel yourself starting to get heavy and paralyzed and defeated, and those worries start to spin in your mind. Here's exactly what you're going to do. It's just 6 magical words. It encapsulates incredible research. It's so simple. You can do it. And don't worry, it's going to work. Here are the 6 magical words you're going to say to yourself every time you worry. What if it all works out? That's it. What if it all works out? Look, I know what you're thinking. You feel let down right now. That's because you're worried it's not going to work. But what if it all works out? What if these simple, stupid 6 words actually work? What if trying this works out? You just heard me say the words. What if it all works out? And you know what your response was? Well, I don't think it's going to work out. That's why I'm worrying. You got to trust me on this. Your worries sound just as dumb as this magical tool does. You have just listened to your worry for so long that you believe it. Now, I said this was hand-to-hand combat. You don't just throw one punch, you're going to have to keep on punching. Every time one of your stupid worries pop into your head, what if I don't get the apartment? What if I don't lose the weight? What if I don't get the raise? What if I look stupid my first day of work? What if nobody ever loves me? What if the swamp monster kills me? You need to punch those stupid worries in the face with 6 magical words, because this simple question breaks the pattern of worrying. Because if you think about worrying always begins with what if. In fact, my daughter used to call her worries the what if loop. I feel like I'm trapped in a what if loop, Mom. Well, guess what? You're trapped in a what if loop too. So you need just one fast, perfectly placed, boom, counterpunch. You need the same punch for every worry. So you get really good at punching every worry in the face. And that punch is, what if it all works out? That's the counterpunch you need to knock absolutely any worry and all overthinking away. It's pretty incredible. I'm here to tell you, in those moments when you get trapped in this, what if this, what if that, and you start spinning, you got to stop it. And the fastest way to stop the spinning is to say, well, what if it all works out? What if I get the apartment? What if I pass the test? What if the doctor says something and it's okay? What if he doesn't break up with me? What if he breaks up with me and it all works out? What if I get bad news and it all works out and I'm okay? It's a way to get back the feeling of control. You see, the research shows that when you feel out of control, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain behind your forehead, the part that's in charge of organizing information and making decisions, it basically stops working when you feel out of control. And that's why it's so hard to make decisions, and it's why it's hard to move ahead. You just get stuck in this dark mental loop because you literally are so focused on things not working out that you don't have anything positive to grab onto. What if it all works out? Gives you something positive to hold on to. It gives your brain the ladder out of a dark hole of worry. And all you have to do is step on the first rung. Because the first rung on that ladder out of that dark hole of worry is 6 simple words. What if it all works out? Ask it again and you step on the second rung. What if it all works out? Again, and you're on the third rung. Ask it repeatedly about the same problem, and it's like climbing up the ladder. And before you know it, the ladder, what if it all works out, has got you up so high, you are out of the hole of worry, and you have a completely different view of the situation. Listen, there will always be things that come out of nowhere. We can't stop the outside world. We can't stop the fact that you are probably going to worry about something every day. I mean, hello, global pandemic. People get sick. People say they don't want to be married. Jobs get taken away. The stock market drops. Shit happens. It's easy and normal to feel knocked down by life. But you can always use these 6 magical words to help you ride the ups and downs in life. What if it all works out? Doesn't mean it's going to work out today. One of the reasons why your brain loves the sentence, what if it all works out, is you haven't put a deadline at the end of it. The fact that you're saying, well, what if it all works out, automatically allows your brain to expand out of the current crisis because you know, based on your life experience, that in the end, over the years, yeah, eventually, it does all work out. And, here's a third reason why these 6 magical words create opportunity, possibility, positivity, and a better situation. And that is because it anchors you in optimism. When you're worried and you say, how will it work out? When is it going to work out? What if it doesn't work out? The how and the when, it narrows your focus. It gets you caught in the worry loop, and it makes your thoughts and your mood spiral tighter and tighter and tighter. The second you say, well, what if it all works out? You just change that one word from how's it going to work out? How's it going to what if it all works out? I mean, come on. And it opens you up. You can just feel the different energy. How's it going to work out? What if it all works out? If you consider that it will all work out, you begin to see multiple paths. How puts the blinders on? It makes things really small. What if it all works out? Opens up the world of alternatives that you have, and it widens the scope. It widens the lens you're looking through, making room for better things to happen. The next time you hear yourself say, what if, and you start bracing for the worst, instead, just insert your new magic words. What if it all works out? What if this turns out to be the best decision I've ever made? What if I look back 6 months from now and this, right now, this was the moment I found the courage to be myself? What if I'm stronger and more resilient than I think? What if something amazing is happening and I just need to believe it? That last one is everything. I do believe something amazing is happening for you. I do believe that you are stronger and more resilient than you think. It will work out for you. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.